I selected the overlap option of the collision preset component of the maze object and my character passes through the walls of maze. The player can't get inside the maze either it is standing in air or not entering the maze through the entrance. If I selected the overlap, it passes through. Okay, so I think this is a question that I can check out on Discord. Yeah, so I think this image is pretty. I can understand something from it that maybe there is some invisible collisions that might be blocking that particular view. So what I can do is I can kind of help you by kind of taking you through a few steps that you can check on your end to make sure that your collisions might not be affecting the whole kind of output. All right. So again, we are in a tank simulation. So what I want to do now is just share a bit of an insight on how collisions work in Unreal Engine. Simply get a simple cube right here, and I'll kind of place this like so. So, firstly, your question basically told us that when you kind of let me just read it once again. You can't get inside the maze because it's standing in the air. So that issue is basically there might be an extra collision in one of your maze walls that might be extending outside. Now to just make sure that is an issue, what you can do is simply open up Unreal Engine, and in this case I'm clicking on a cube, but in your case you will click on your maze walls that you made, and you can simply just go to the static mesh. Open that static mesh up quickly. I prefer docking it at the side. And what you can check over here is you want to basically see the collisions in this particular mode. Now, in order to see the collisions, you might want to go to the options at the top tab over here. You want to click on the show, and over here you want to kind of show the complex collision. So in my case, you can see the complex collision over here is pretty accurate in kind of matching the cube's outline. It all looks pretty good and looks pretty fine. You can also check out the simple collision if you want. I'll just hide the complex. So the simple collision is this green color outline that you can see over here. So these are the two things that you want to check in your scene, and you want to kind of make sure that they are exactly matching that of the cube and not kind of bigger than the visible mesh that you are using. So that's what you want to check to kind of make sure whether that works. And the chances are you will kind of notice that it is not exactly fitting the kind of mesh that you are using. That is what the most probable problem might be. You can however send us screenshots also of how this collision mesh looks as well. And if you want to fix it, what you can do is you can just click, since you're already in the static mesh, you can just click on the collision option at the top over here which says collision. And over here, what you might want to do first is you want to remove the collisions. And from the image that I saw on Discord, it was pretty much like a cuboid kind of shape. So you might want to just try adding a box simplified collision. And then when you add this box simplified collision, you will pretty much have properties over here to kind of manipulate. So you can just change the size of your collision. So it will kind of be shown somewhere over here in the collision presets area. And after that, second thing was mentioned in the question is that you basically selected on the overlap all option for the collision presets. Now, overlap all it's a preset that you select, and when you select it, basically what that does is all the collisions are ignored in your scene. So that is why your character was falling. So as you can see, were static objects that overlap all actors by default. So by default, the collisions will be ignored by any type of actor. So in your case, you are using the mannequin to pass through the static mesh walls. So that's why when you use overlap all, your character just kind of passes through everything. So in this case, when you wanted it to work through the maze, this is not basically the right option. What you can do is you can just set it to the normal block all, or you can just set it to the default option by whichever it kind of shows when you first created it. But if you still don't know, maybe block all works quite well. So block all basically will, as it's written in the definition, block all the actors by default. And yeah, that should definitely work. Block all dynamic maybe I can just take you through all the collision presets for a much more better understanding on how they kind of affect your static mesh. So block all dynamic is only will block all your dynamic actors in your scene. So your dynamic actors are basically the actors that can move in your scene. And an example of a dynamic actor is your mannequin or your man. Similarly, overlap all dynamic, I just covered it. It's similar to overlap all, except it only works on dynamic objects. Ignore only pawn is it will ignore your pawn classes and your vehicle classes, but all other objects will not be able to pass through it. So you can kind of get a basic idea on how each of these collision presets are kind of used for achieving different kinds of customizations. And of course, so you if you ever are confused about which option you want to select for your particular choice, you can just kind of highlight over each of them and just go through them, and then you get a better understanding. And yeah, and last you have your custom option. So your custom option basically kind of lets you experiment with all the various unique kind of properties. So yeah, this is pretty much about collision presets. And one last thing that you want to do is you want to also check one option which is over here. So in the collision complexity, you want to make sure that you use your complex collision as a simple one. So as I showed you earlier, when you click on your collision types, there are two types. Your in the show section, you have two types: simple collision and complex collision. So make sure that you use your complex collision as simple, so it will only use the complex shapes for scene queries and collision tests. And yeah, it kind of makes your entire collision kind of setup more easier, and it makes it much more better. So just make sure that the collision complexity is always use complex collision as simple. It is basically more optimized. So yeah, hope that will solve your query.